Studies have shown that women empowerment plays a significant role in the economy. Countries that have opened up education to women and brought them into the workforce do much better economically than countries that keep women suppressed. It is no surprise that leaving 1/2 of your population uneducated means that you have drastically inferior workforce. Corporate financial performance and gender diversity have a very strong correlation. Smart companies have achieved success by diversifying their board members with women, leading to more independence, innovation, and good governance, and maximizing their company's performance. Today we have with us Tania Hamilton, the co-founder of Nabaki Africa, a company that was established in 1993 by a husband and a wife, Hamish and Tania Hamilton. Nabaki Africa's annual turnover began with less than $100,000 and has increased to a current turnover of over $15 million per annum, making it Tanzania's leading and most respected retailers and wholesalers of quality building products and construction materials. Thank you for being with us today, Tania. Thank you for being here with us today, Tania. There's an interesting story about how you came up with the name Nabaki Africa. Can you tell us the story?
Yes, yeah, it's such a lovely story. Everybody's inspired by it. So my husband and I came up to Tanzania in 1993 to have a look-see, and we fell in love with Tanzania, and we decided then and there to register a business. And we wanted to have a Swahili name, but of course then we didn't know any Swahili.
Right.
So we were staying at the old Mwenzi Hotel downtown, and we called the waiters and we said, we want to come up with a Swahili name to describe what we are about, that we are born Zimbabwean, we are Africans, and we have lived in South Africa, and we've lived in America and England, but our roots are here and we want to stay in Africa. So can they help us with a name that would describe that? So the waiters said, well, this will take some time, go away. And come back in an hour, and we promised them a zawadi for that.
Okay.
And so we went away, we came back, and there were some long names and short names and all these different names, and they described what they meant, and there was this one, Nabaki Africa.
Okay.
And the waiter, Nathaniel, we said, what does this mean? And he said, you know, I remain in Africa and really remain your roots. And we said, well, that's exactly the name we want. And then he said, wait, it's not finished. And he leant forward and he added limited to the end of the name. And I must say, it's been a great name in that people are very nationalistic or continent, they love the continent. And so it stays in people's minds. And people may not know what we do exactly, but they will say, I know Nabaki, you know. So it's been a great name for us.
And it also has like a personal, like sort of, it gives you a personal story as well, that name, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, how Nabaki Africa started, and how you grew? And what were some challenges you faced, you know, traveling to a new country, and how they have shaped you?
Okay. So Nabaki, my husband and I, as I said, we are Zimbabwean born and raised. And we had a little interlude in the States, and then we went to study in Cape Town, and we lived in South Africa for 10 years. And we loved Cape Town, as most people do. It's a beautiful city. But we never quite resonated with South Africa, and we felt we wanted to move, and we almost went back to Zimbabwe. Lucky we didn't. And we went to Kenya and had a look, and it was too developed, and then in fact my brother was the one who said, you know, if you want like the last of the great wildernesses but also opportunities, you've got to go to Tanzania. So we came here, and that was 93, and we fell in love, and as I said, we registered the business straight away. And within 9 months from there, we came and we launched ourselves at Saba Saba in 1994. And But, you know, we were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We thought, wow, this is, you know, we're coming to this, you know, wonderful country with a lot of opportunity because Tanzania had moved out of socialism, of course, and it was now moving and developing, but it was still very early days. And we were a little bit romantic, looking at things through rose-tinted glasses, thinking, well, you know, it's just all going to be rosy. And, you know, your initial things, I always call it WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. But it wasn't what we saw. What behind the scenes, there were things that we completely underestimated. What starting a business in a third world country, which didn't have, do you remember in those days, there were, you know, no supermarkets, no phones really, cell phones were just coming in, no electricity, no water, the roads were broken, the bureaucratic, you know, nightmare of getting stuff done. So that was one aspect, but the other aspect was actually the what I call off-grid business happenings that you know, that were this way, the Panya route, not the straight route, and we were like, wow, you know, that was very new to us, and because of all of these things, we. It was challenging, but we also compounded, had this arrogance that we thought, well, we're African, we know how Africa works, but we're bringing with us some sort of knowledge base and technology base from South Africa, and we were arrogant. And we thought it would be so easy, but my goodness, we learned so many lessons where we just were knocked down and we slowly picked ourselves up again, and then we were knocked down again. We lost all our money through various things and fraudulent clients and one thing and another. And in fact, after sort of that first year, we thought we're going to go home with our tails between our legs, but we couldn't even afford to send our belongings home. And also there was a certain amount of pride that we thought we can't go back having failed. So it was really, really tough. And in fact, I remember my father visiting in '95 from Zimbabwe, and I took him to our office, which was in Buguruni, Malapa, because that was the only place we could afford. The rents were crazy high downtown even back then. And as I said, we lost so much. And we drove through the sort of shanty town of Buguruni and hooted at the Mabati gates of our place. And my father leaned forward and he touched my leg and he said, you know, darling, show me your real office. And I was like, Dad, this is my real office. And he says, you've got to be joking. And I said, no, I'm not. And he was like, you know, what happened? But having said all of that, I would not, my husband and I would not change it for anything in the world, because those university fees and struggle in the beginning completely changed the way we had originally intended to go the path, the target market. We were thinking, well, expats, multinationals, and this forced us to go local. And our biggest clients then and to this day are Tanzanians, and you know, homeowners who've starting out, saving their money, building their lives. So that has been something that we look back on and say, you know, the times were tough. Sometimes we would just eat rice for 3 weeks and we'd think, where will we get the fuel to put in our car? But somehow you push through, and it's all excellent. I think people who don't somehow suffer in life are, you know, won't know what it's like, and they won't thrive.
I think that's what the most important thing is, that the challenges that you face at the beginning of any business is what sort of shapes you, you know, and you take all those lessons until today, I'm sure, and you know, you keep them in mind when you're conducting your business. Okay. So you started this company with your husband, you know, and you've worked hand in hand with him since the beginning. What are some qualities, being a female business leader in the company, that you think was beneficial to the growth and the success of your company?
Well, I think attention to detail, women generally. My husband's a big brushstroke person, and I do the detail. And holding the purse strings, looking after the money. And yeah, so I think those qualities were very important. And then I also see, like, women in business, our role is to provide a safe and nurturing environment for other people to grow and inspire them to realize their own potential. And I think this was another factor. And I think a trust factor. Often women are trusted more than men. It's not always true that there are many women you can't trust and many men you can, of course. But I think we built our business in the early days. We had absolutely no money, absolutely no cash flow. And so trying to hold stock was a big issue. And so our customers came to us and they said, you know, we can't trust ourselves to look after and save our money to buy a roof or whatever it was. So we're going to give you money, some over 2 years, every month they'd bring kidogo, kidogo. And we would hold that money for them. And that those advances allowed us to have the money to buy the stock and bring it in. And that really was we've never to this day had an overdraft or taken a bank loan. Everything has been self-funded. I think that's also a big lesson, is don't get yourself in debt and all the interest and the cost of debt. But those advances from all of those early clients are really what helped us. And and I think again my husband was excellent in the technical side of building products and marketing, and a great motivator. And I've always been sort of finance, admin, HR, you know, but so it was a good. So
it's a good mix, you know. I think that also, you know, especially when you're working with your spouse or you're working with your family, it becomes challenging at times. But I think that if you both have something that you're good at, and you know, an area that you can sort of that you are better at, then it's better, you know, and the business does well as well. So in your 20-year video, you know, you said something so good. You said that it's about human development and not about human resources, and that really caught my attention. You know, can you elaborate on that?
So I studied economics and industrial psychology, and when we first moved to Tanzania, it wasn't about, you know, building an empire or a legacy or business or money, actually. In fact, we wanted to be in the bush doing something. But anyway, it transpired, here we are. But it was very much, when I studied, what I loved most in my economic studies was developmental economics and the potential. And then again with the industrial psychology and my own beliefs and my own journey, it's been very much about realizing one's own potential and helping others to realize it. Because I think so much we self-sabotage ourselves, and that puts a limit on our growth. But if you can, I know it sounds cliched, believe in yourself, but if you can believe in yourself, if you can have a safe environment where others believe in you or unlock that potential. So human development, so yes, of course, performance appraisals are important, having targets, you know, having discipline in the workplace, all these are obviously very vital, but it's doing it not in that sort of old school mechanistic sort of way. It's about inspiring others to want to do it themselves and to be self-policing, self-enforcing, and enjoy what they're doing. You know, we'll often say I'll say if you hate what you're doing, just get out of there. Initially, I was in investment banking for 4 years. And yes, it was challenging and fun in the early days, but then I became somebody I didn't like anymore. And so I changed, I left that. So it's about, finding something that you love. And I was lucky to have mentors along my journey that showed me that process.
And I think that's what organizations really do need to focus on, that sort of idea that, you know, like you said, it's not mechanic. It's not, you know, you're hiring somebody, you do my job, you have your appraisals, you know, and that's it. You have to make sure that you spark some sort of passion in the person to want to, you know, that will help them, but it'll also help your business, you know. So it's so important. You're very right.
It is that win-win, and it's a holistic approach. And I think the world we are evolving to this more holistic approach and recognizing people's skills and not forcing them into something that, yes, we all have to do some things we don't like. That's part of life. But finding those things that people are good at, then they can flourish.
You have over 100 support staff. How do you manage such a big corporate family? Can you talk a little bit? You did say the importance of investing in your people, but can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So we started, Hamish and I, and then one person, and that same one person, Salom Mahanyu, is still with us today, 21 years on. Okay. And he started as a driver, and now he's one of our most successful external sales agents. Wow. And if I think back, again, it goes back to providing the space where, lovely stories that come to mind. There's this chap called Rama. He's now called Raymond. He's changed his name. And he was selling newspapers. And my husband used to go to this one garage, and like every day, Raymond would be there and somehow managed to sell like 5 newspapers to Hamish instead of 1. And he would give him credit and say, oh, pay me at the end of the week. And then we were looking for somebody to work in our stores, and Hamish went and said, do you want to join us? And he did, and he's still with us, and now he's running our stores, our whole warehouse up at our Arusha branch. And we've had several people who've started in housekeeping. They've gone on to be receptionists. They've gone on to be in sales. One went on to be a branch manager. So it's those lovely stories. And as you say, it's a family of 100. Hamish and I don't have our own children. Our business has been our baby. We also have 12 children that live in our property, Tanzanians, who we sponsor with education and sports. So we've had this opportunity, but these are, our babies. The company's now, of course, 21 years old, so it's grown up. And it must be able to run on its own 2 feet now. But so I think managing this family has been starting small, growing with the family. And then now, you get to a position where you can afford to have managers, and we have a great CEO, Vatsal Shah, who started as a general manager. He's been with us 15 years now. He's now our CEO for many years. And a great general manager, Mark, and heads of departments. So so then you realize, let go. I think it's very important. I'm a bit of a compulsive, obsessive control freak, but I've learned over the years that doesn't help anybody.
To delegate, right?
You have to learn to delegate and let go. And yes, people will do things differently to how you would, but that's okay. It's about surrender and acceptance a lot of the time.
Okay. So in an interview with Sheryl Sandberg, she talks about the challenges of being a woman in the corporate world. She explains that it's the stereotypes that hold us back. For example, cultures vary, but gender is the same in every part of the world. So men are supposed to be the strong people, and when you have small girls who speak up, they're known to be bossy, and apparently there's a word for bossy in every language in the world, for a girl.
Yes.
So what do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership?
And this is very different coming from different culture. And I was very fortunate to grow up with a very strong woman in my life. My mother, my sister, they were very outspoken. They stood up for themselves. And but having said that, I also grew up in a Zimbabwean culture, which is very male-dominated and very chauvinistic men. And the women did definitely have their place. I remember saying to my father, I want to go to university. And he said, oh, no, my dear, you can go to secretarial college. And but your brother has a fund for his university.
Wow.
That was there. So I said, okay. And I had to go to secretarial college, for which I thank my father every day, because I can type without looking at the keyboard at 100 miles an hour, so certain benefits. Anyway, I then went to the States and worked and raised money for my own university. And as soon as my father saw I was serious, he completely subsidized my career. But So going back to the barriers, Tanzania, we're lucky that the woman, even if it hasn't been sort of highlighted, but the women are the productive people of this country. You drive rural, you go anywhere, you see the woman carrying the firewood, carrying the water, carrying the child, and 15 behind, hoeing the land, holding the money. The men are often under the tree chatting. But so, and Tanzania has many women ministers in parliament, and you see women developing, you know, properties and running businesses. So, and it may have been under a bushel, their light, and it's now more coming to power, to come to be. But going back to what is the biggest barrier, I think it's self-sabotage. I think if women limit themselves by the meme, the belief of their culture, they're not going to get anywhere. So you have to push. But at the same time, it's actually realizing that work with your male counterpart. Look at your strengths and weaknesses, and let it be a win-win. Don't try and be, you know, some women try too hard and then they threaten men in that way, and the men like say, I don't want to listen to you, and you know, push you out the way. So it's it's cleverly using our innate I'd say our nurturing and our passion for creating things, you know, like we create children, and using that in the workforce.
It's you know, it's an interesting story you said about how, like, with your dad, he's like, oh, you know, he has a fund for your brothers, and and I think that happens a lot in Tanzania and around the world, that where, you know, you'll have a family of 5, you know, and there'll be like 3 brothers, and the father will be like, okay, you know, I have enough money to send the boys to university, but I don't have enough money to sort of send the girls, or, you know, why? They're going to get married, and then what's the point? You know, it's like sort of like, where is the value addition to me? You know, I think that I was very lucky because coming from a culture where, you know, this is what's happening. My dad was actually very pro me doing very well in school, doing very well in sports, and he's like, you know what, you have to go to university, you have to have a degree, make sure you get your degree, you know. And so I think that it's so important to also have a sort of a family that supports, you know, your dreams and your career. And at the end of the day, it has so much to do with your parents, because they have to sort of, you know, gender stereotypes start when you're young. You know, when your parents tell you, oh, you know, you're a girl, like, why are you playing football, or why are you playing this sport? You know, just relax, like, come back and play with your toys, you know. You're gonna get hurt. I remember my dad I was on the golf course when I was 6 for hours and hours and hours playing golf, you know. And at that time I was like, what is this guy doing to me, you know? But as you grow older, like, with hindsight, I can see that it was amazing, because I'm such a good golfer now. You know, I can, you know, I compete with men, you know, and it's really, really amazing. But I think that the important thing is it's also your family, you know, and the sort of support that they give you. You know,
makes it much easier. But even if you don't have that kind of family, it's I think another thing is finding families who do have that, and try and spend time with those people. You can seek out those mentors, even if they're not right close to you.
Exactly. So you said your mom and your sister were very outspoken, and they were the ones that sort of, were they the ones that inspired you?
So they inspired me to speak up and to completely feel an equal. I never, and even I met my husband when I was 16, in fact.
Wow.
So we've been together a long, long time. And even though he was this, you know, very macho rugby playing person, and a real Zimbabwean in that male way, but he always put me, never ever did it enter his mind that I would not be his equal, and all through work. And he respects what my skill sets are that are stronger than his, and I respect his skill sets. And so, but my sister, always outspoken and quite a feminist, actually. And my mother, she had a horse riding school, but she did a lot. She used to also teach handicapped kids to ride horses, to give them a sense of doing something that a lot of normal kids don't get to do, like riding horses. And here were handicapped kids who could do it. And she made them believe that even if you're...
Feel empowered,
Yes,
right?
exactly. So it was very much about empowering, and she never took no for an answer. And, you know, so I'm grateful for that.
Okay. Yeah, and having a partner that sort of supports you is so important, you know, and I think that that's also a reason why your business probably flourished so much, because your husband had so much sort of faith in you, you know, and that is, because I think that that's also what hinders a lot of,
you're so right,
you know, businesses, because if you, especially when you're working together, I'm sure there are so many challenges of working, you know, and seeing the person every day. But it's also important to sort of have faith and have respect for your spouse or your partner who you're working with, you know. So
and that also goes to your whole team, because so often when one doesn't have faith in one of your members of staff, and that person picks it up. You know what it's like where you feel somebody doesn't believe in you. Then you kind of fumble and you bunny in the headlights, and you're living in fear. And then nobody can work well in that situation. So it's letting people know that you have faith and trust in them. And yes, it's not to say that you're not going to be disappointed, and we all know that. But it's it's giving people confidence, because I think the biggest thing is not about how much brain power you have or money you have, but if you have confidence in yourself, you can just get that much further.
And people pick that up, like you said. You know?
Absolutely.
So I was watching an interview with Indra Nooyi, you know, and she's a CEO of PepsiCo. And she said, you know, that women can't have it all. And she's trying to explain that, you know, the biological clock and the career clock are in conflict. And, you know, when women are supposed to build their careers, they have to have a baby, you know. And she said that in order to balance this sort of life, you know, you have to give up certain things, and you know that you have to be true to the circumstances, and you know, build coping mechanisms. And she said a really interesting story. She said, you know, she'd be traveling around the world, and she had like a 5-year-old daughter, and she would call, and then the secretary would pick up, and because she was so busy, she couldn't attend to the call, or you know, she'd be somewhere else. So she would give the secretary a list of questions, you know, because the daughter would be like, hey, can I play like on my iPad for like 20 minutes? So the secretary would be like, okay, have you done your homework? Have you done this? Have you done this?
Tick list.
Okay, you know, you can play with your iPad or, you know, your computer. So she was trying to say that basically it's, you know, it's that sometimes there is a sense of guilt, but, you know, that you have to cope with the situation and, you know, delegate to sort of raise your kids, you know. So do you think women can have it all? Yeah,
you know, I think if you look at, I very much believe in, like, we're going through an evolution process. We are constantly evolving, and consciously as well. And what you see when you go back to the emancipation days and women fighting for the vote, and women, in order to be seen and heard, they have to be that much like more powerful than men, do better than men, and that made them quite hardened, and then families suffered, a relationship suffered, children suffered, because those poor women were at the forefront of this change, and so they were sort of the pioneers of it, and there's collateral damage, I think. And I think that by being superwoman, there were even books, I used to read those books, Superwoman, and how to multitask and be the best cook and the best host and look the best and be the top of the class and whatever. But we've moved through that, thank goodness. And I think now, and then we went through, the stage of like now equal opportunity, we're still pushing for equal pay and so on. And it's still a challenge, you know, having children. As I said, I don't have children, so it was somehow easier for me. But I think where we're moving, which is so exciting, is that the whole workplace, I think with technology, being able to work from home more hours, being able to do more so much more quickly and conveniently.
Right.
I think we're moving to a much more balanced world, which will allow for, and actually it'll prove that if you have balance, I always say this and yet I quite haven't got the balance, but I do know that if you can be balanced, you will be more productive, you will sleep better, you know, you will do your yoga and your exercise and play with your kids. So yeah, hopefully companies are moving towards this where they'll allow the time off. Many big companies now, you know, with budget they have creches in the workplace. And that it's actually okay. You know, a lot of women would feel embarrassed to say, I've taken off 2 years to be with my kids. And they kind of think, oh, that sounds so housewifey. But be proud of that, you know. And you can do other things to, well, nurture your child and give them the best that they can, you know, best start in life. So, yeah, I think it's been going through the times that we've been through. There's definitely, it's been harder. But I think now moving towards where we're moving and acceptance, more and more of women being there and the qualities and more women in power, in power, but also in boards of directors. And I think men initially would ridicule the woman and, you know, her hormones and whatever, but they would use that because they kind of didn't, they almost wanted some weaponry, you know, and there was sort of this unknown, not a fear of women, but, you know, I think now it's becoming normal and, you know, and again, it's looking at our strengths and weaknesses, and we are different, men and women are different, but it's not to say that one's better than another.
Yeah, you're right, and I think that a lot of women who do work and who have kids, I think it's so important for them to have a career and to do something because your kids are watching you.
Yes.
And they're learning from the mother, you know. So when they grow up, this again, it's the whole gender thing, you know. They're growing up and they're watching the mother, and they're like, oh, but my mother stayed at home, so maybe it's okay for me to do it, you know. Even though they might have that passion and that, you know, sort of. So yeah, I think it's so important for women to sort of go out there and do something because you're raising your kids, you know, and so you have to be an example to your kids.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so important. And even some whose, what is your sole purpose? Is your mission to actually be the best mother you can possibly, and you love that and you want to be, that's also fine. But find still something that makes you you. Because come, you know, 20 years time, those kids have left. And, you know, you have to know who you are. And,
I think, that you've nailed it. That's very true. So in university, one of my professors, you know, he constantly repeated that, you know, if you want to be successful in life, you have to find a goal that's bigger than yourself. You know, you can't say, I just want to make money. You have to find something that's above and beyond you, you know. So a successful life is all about giving back. And you've started a community-based initiative called Nipe Fagio, which translates to give me a broom. What inspired you to do this? Why this cause?
Okay, and it's so true where you say you need a cause in life. And again, what is your mission in life? And I don't think you have one, and it can evolve through time. But so this whole thing of giving back, and in a way, I don't necessarily call it giving back. It's something, I remember once reading or listening to something where it said, what do you want to do in life? Either it should make your heart sing or it should break your heart. And then you move to action. And with me, it was breaking my heart. As I said, I've lived here since 1993. When I came to Tanzania, there were 1.5 million people in Dar es Salaam, and now there's over 5 million and growing. And so this rapid urbanization obviously has huge challenges, and rapid consumerism and waste. And so on my way to my home past Bahari Beach, I drive over many bridges. And over the years, I would just notice people are just dumping in these rivers. And it used to actually infuriate me. And I was always complaining about this and what can we do? And eventually my husband, this must have been 4 years ago now, said, for goodness sake, stop complaining. If either do something about it or shut up.
Oh, okay.
And so I thought, right. So I took myself off to Kinondoni municipality to meet the district commissioner.
Okay.
And I said, you know, naively thinking he would say, oh, really? Is there rubbish in the river? Well, we will sort that out tomorrow. And then, of course, I learned so much that, you know, the municipalities can't cope. Only 40% of the waste gets to the dump. You know, basically help was needed. And so I thought, well, you know, this is a no-brainer. Everybody will want to help because we all coexist in our environment. We co-create it. It's all of our responsibility. And I always love the definition of responsibility, which is your ability to respond. So I thought to myself, okay, what is my, Tania Hamilton's, ability to respond? And I thought, okay, my company's now, you know, nearly grown up. It doesn't need me so much. I can give the time to do something else and follow my passion. I've always actually been an environmentalist. I think living in Africa, always spending time in national parks, in the bush with wildlife. In fact, that's where I feel most alive. So it's not just the health aspect of environmental degradation, but it's the wildlife and ecosystem aspect. So anyway, I thought, what can I do? So I started talking with friends and meeting people. And through this, I met someone called Saeed, who's a Tanzanian who, some 4 years prior to that time, had been living in Canada, came back to Tanzania, saw also the environmental degradation. And he rallied some friends together and they came up with this name, Nipe Fagio. And they said, we've got to do something. And it's about empowering others to self-responsibility. And he went speaking to government. And in fact, he wanted to be a commercial waste collector and a commercial recycler. Anyway, for various reasons, he faced so many challenges. And so he came to me when he heard what I was trying to do, and he said, you know what, Tania, I want to tell you, I've tried this and I think you're wasting your time. And he gave me his story. And I said, you know what, Saeed, I so believe in right timing. You were too ahead of your time. But the time is now. Back then, even in 2012, 2013, the environmental issues were becoming more and more in the headlines. And I said, the time is now. So we said, okay, let's get together. And we registered Nipe Fagio as a non-profit. And then we used our network. So I went to a fellow director, Anton Fouquet from DJPA Advertising, and I said, we need some branding. We need a new logo. We need, he said, great, I've been waiting for something like this to come along. And then I went to friend Mandy Fuller and I said, you know, come on, you're a great writer. And so basically we then started working through our network and finding skills that we needed. We are still completely a volunteer-based organization and we call it sweat equity. So we used our influence to go to, say, billboard companies and say, we need some billboards for this, but we have no money. And we said, you've got to put your sweat on the table and give us in kind. You know, we got registered for free by a lawyer in kind, our accounting and so on. And so we've managed to survive on the sweat of people. And then we started getting small grants, some donations. And yeah, so anyway, so suddenly it just blossomed in that the need was so great. And I am now 80% of my time is completely dedicated to Nipe Fagio. I mean, I pass through Nabaki and I do go for weekly management meetings and of course various things, but everybody's like, where are you these days? Nabaki Africa has been amazing. They've given Nipe Fagio a free office and sponsored us with our initial setup, startup money. And more and more corporates now are coming to the table with that. And we are now, all of a sudden, we're talking to World Bank and DFID and GIZ, and we're part of bigger projects. And I always say, my goodness, that's like so grown up in the NGO world, which is new to me. But it's fantastic to see. I'm so proud of where Nipe Fagio has gone. Our youth ambassador program, which is bringing in youth, young graduates, who come and they do internships with us, or we train them in content and behavior change skills. And in that, we're not behavior change experts, but we go to the experts, like Johns Hopkins University give us free training. And so these youth go in and do community outreach, school outreach, we do community cleanups. So it's really amazing how, and right now, I mean, we've just had our Independence Day celebration and Magufuli, and as soon as he started on his Hapakazi 2, Anton DJPA said, listen, we've got to leverage this, and we launched our Hapa Usafi 2 campaign. And we've been so busy with spreading the word and getting so many community cleanups going. So yes, Nipe Fagio started, it was a struggle, Saeed struggled for years, the right timing, we made some headway, but honestly, it's about leadership, because we look at Rwanda, and it's the cleanest country in Africa. And I went to Rwanda last year and met the mayor and said, how is it that you've managed to keep this going? We want to learn from you. And it's about leadership and a political will from the top, as well as grassroots political will, and about enforcement. And the third thing is, of course, making the undesirable behavior socially not acceptable. And that's very much what Nipe Fagio is about. And it's about Naleta Mabadiliko, I am the change.
And I think that's the sort of idea that you have to slowly ingrain in the minds of us all, that, this is where you're living.
Yes.
This is, you have to make sure that you keep your environment clean, because this is your home, and it's going to be the home for your kids as well. So I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I think it's such a perfect time now, because you're going to flourish so much more.
And another interesting thing is where you said it's about your kids and where you live, and if you don't have a clean environment, you can give all the money you want to, and I'm not saying these aren't great causes, to orphans or disabled or whatever it is, but without our environment, we know we only have one planet.
Exactly.
And without that planet thriving and our ecosystems thriving, we are all, our health, look at our cholera outbreaks right now, our dengue fever. But it's interesting that there's a disconnect through lack of education and awareness, that people do not realize that blocking stormwater drains allows water to stagnate, raw sewage going in there causes diarrhea and typhoid, mosquitoes to breed, damage to property from blocked drains and lives. Many people die in these floods and So, and even burning, one thing, we were so happy to see the thousands and thousands of people come out cleaning our environment, but many thought that waste was organic as well, and then setting fire to it. And in fact, it's illegal to burn rubbish. And yet there is a disconnect, even in our primary school books, it says burn rubbish. So, there's a lot of education to be done. And burning has, in fact, the world's biggest killer. I was shocked when I learned this only about a year ago, that the world's biggest killer are health hazards caused by pollution, whether it's water, air, or soil pollution. The health, diseases that come from that are the world's biggest killer. And so once people realize that, and you speak to mothers burning their plastics with their kids hanging around, and you realize those are carcinogenic and cause cancer, people are like, wow, that's big eureka moments for them. So
and I think that people love to give here, especially a lot of corporates, they love to give, but a lot of times a lot of mistakes we make is here's money, I hope it helps you. I think that now we have to move towards sort of getting involved and giving our time.
Absolutely.
And sort of creating awareness, and making a difference in a way where we are involved and we're getting people involved. Like, like you said, this beach cleanup. Such a good idea, because you have, so many people coming together. It's a sense of, you know, community.
Yeah.
It's a, you know, you're also providing the idea that, you know, you have to keep your environment clean and you have to get involved yourself, you know. It's very easy to pay somebody or pay, you know, and be like, hey, can you just do it for me, you know. So
but when you do it yourself, you feel good, and that's the thing. It's actually doing good is infectious. It's addictive. You want to do more. And like you said, you were cleaning the beaches on the 9th. The 350 Mohammed Enterprises people were out there, and you had fun. And and that's just what's great. And again, going back to the corporate thing, it's not just about giving the money. You're so right. Again, it's that ability to respond. Corporates now, it's more than just CSR, or what a lot of people do is greenwashing when they're going sustainability things, but it's really walking your talk and making sure that at the office it's encouraged to actually, in fact, I met somebody for I don't know if she still is the general manager or MD of Standard Chartered Bank here, and they actually allow people certain days to go and do whatever CSR they want to do. They allow the time off. And I thought that's so great. So it's actually, companies are not just here about building the nation and economy. Those are the old ways of thinking. I think we are moving into this holistic, and companies actually getting out there, and less is more sometimes. Less money, but more doing. And we'll have a GDP shouldn't be the be all and end all. I mean, you know, there's many where people indexes for happiness. And that's what it's about, actually.
You're completely right. So you said a lot about how it's sort of, it brings a sense of happiness. You know, what impact has it had on you working at Nipe Fagio and establishing it? You know, how has it shaped you as a person?
Well, as I said, I've always been an environmentalist and very, you know, bit of an activist for causes, but maybe I was more of a slacktivist. I'd sit in my chair and I'd sign all the petitions on AVAS and everything. But, you know, the time for action is now in our world. And I think as I saw global warming, as I saw the degradation of our environment, the suffering of animals, we are in the 6th great extinction. That spurred me on more and more. And how it shaped me is through learning so much more about sustainability issues, going to conferences, you know, watching YouTubes, reading up. It's an insatiable need for me to learn about this, and sometimes an insatiable need to tell people. And my husband says, for goodness sake, do not start talking rubbish at the dinner table and do not go off, you like an evangelical, you know, converter. But so I have to try and bite my tongue. But seriously, it's, again, I think it's when you find your passion, and I am, as I said, compulsive obsessive, but it's just been an enormously wonderful, rewarding, and it hasn't been without its exhaustion and complete sometimes demotivation, and you know, where you just think there's no hope, like you get so far and then, you know, 1 step forward and 5 steps back, and sometimes I just think I don't have the energy for this. But then the next day you meet a youth ambassador who says, you know what, we had this most amazing, and then suddenly you're injected with more energy. And I think if you're doing what you enjoy doing, finding your passion or your life's purpose, it's been amazing, really amazing.
So I guess that would be one of, like, the advice you would give to women, right? That you have to find your passion. You know? What else would you like to tell, you know, women who want to build their careers and be empowered?
Well, I think again it's believing in yourself. That yourself, you are your most limiting factor generally. Find people that inspire you and hang out with them. You know,
so true.
Really, and it doesn't have to be, you know, people who've at the top of their game. It's just listening. Go on. You know, we have this wealth of opportunity through Google, and again on my journey for this Nipe Fagio thing. And friends saying, oh, I think you'd love this YouTube about some inspiring youth talking at the United Nations about, you know, And it's those things that where the hairs on you prickle and you, that connection, it's like something talks to your inner essence.
Right.
And so everyone out there has something, and it could be, you know, saving donkeys, it could be working with children, whatever it is, there's something out there. It could be being an artist. It could be being the best manager there is to be. It doesn't have to be only to do with charity, you know. But of course you need, I think, the balance. I think very much this balance. And constantly going in. You know, I like meditating. I very much believe in this balance of, you know, family, work, exercise. You know, we are our temple. If we don't look after this and put in the right food and have a spiritual base, I think the world lost that. And I'm not. I see myself as a non-denominational. I'm very interested in all of the religions, and it's more about that inner connection of which we all have. I believe we are all innately good and have that consciousness, and so it's constantly tapping into that.
And I feel like we're all here for a purpose. We all have one purpose, many purposes, but we have a purpose, and so it's very important to sort of, you know, introspect and see, you know, what you're good at and what you can give back and, you know, do it. Very important. But thank you so much, you know, for being here. I think I've learned so much about balancing, and like you said, it's not about giving back, but doing what you're passionate about, you know, and helping others, because I think that you know, we have to get away from being this selfish individual, and we have to sort of, you know, have a holistic approach and get everybody involved, and, you know, make a difference to the people around. So thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. Great to meet you.